Welcome to Revenge with Lyra.
Happy birthday, sweetheart, he said, right before his palm cracked across my face. The room went silent. Forks froze midair. A violinist missed his note. My husband, Ethan, smiled like nothing had happened. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, my cheek burning, my heart colder than I'd ever known it could be. The guests, our friends, his business partners, his precious image, pretended not to see. Because in his world, silence was loyalty. So I gave them silence. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and whispered, "To new beginnings." Then I walked to the far end of the ballroom, heels echoing like war drums. Everyone stared, waiting for tears or an apology. But instead I laughed. A low, sharp laugh that made even the chandelier seem to shiver. Ethan's smirk faltered. He didn't know that laugh was the sound of something breaking and something being born. Because what he didn't realize was that this blow wasn't the start of my humiliation. It was the beginning of his sentence. My name is Lena Carter, I'm 32, and that night, under the glare of chandeliers and cameras, I made a promise to myself. Never again would I beg to be seen. Never again would I let his power define my silence. I looked around that glittering hall, the lies, the people, the golden cage he built for me, and I thought, how poetic that the man who tried to break me did it on camera. The world would see what I saw. Not tonight. Not yet. But soon. And when the truth came out, Ethan Carter would wish that slap had been the last thing the world ever remembered about him. The next morning, sunlight cut through the curtains like knives. My cheeks still ached, faint fingerprints ghosting my skin. Ethan slept soundly beside me, like a man who believed the world still belonged to him. Downstairs, the staff avoided my eyes. They'd all seen it. But in this house, silence was currency. You kept your job by pretending not to notice the bruises on your boss's wife. I brewed coffee, hands steady, movements measured. Every sound felt amplified. The hiss of steam, the clink of porcelain, the low hum of the refrigerator. Control was power. And I was taking mine back piece by piece. Ethan appeared in the doorway, still in his robe, scrolling through his phone. "You embarrassed me last night," he said casually, like discussing the weather. I met his gaze. "You hit me." He smiled. "You pushed me." That's how he always twisted things, breaking me, then convincing me it was my fault. But this time, I just said, "Noted," and walked away. Because while he slept last night, I'd already begun. I downloaded every photo, every message, every video from the ballroom's surveillance system. Ethan loved documenting his life. The cameras he'd installed for security also recorded his cruelty. And I had all of it. Later that day, I visited my lawyer, Marissa Hale, an old friend from college who'd once told me, "If you ever need out, really out, call me." She looked at my cheek and said quietly, "You're ready." I nodded. He thinks last night was control, but it was confession. We drafted the first papers, financials, asset division, evidence. And as I left her office, I looked up at the sky. Blue, bright, and painfully free. The countdown had begun. That evening, Ethan hosted a dinner for his investors, another performance, another mask. He insisted I attend, to keep up appearances. I wore black. Sleek, calm, deliberate. Not the helpless wife they expected, but the kind of woman whose silence could end a career. When we entered the restaurant, the air thickened. Cameras flashed, compliments poured in, and Ethan grinned as if nothing had happened. His favorite lie was pretending we were perfect. At the table, his hand found mine beneath the linen. Tight. Controlling. "You're going to smile," he whispered, "or I'll make you." I smiled, but not for him, because I knew what was waiting. Marissa had connected me with a private investigator, Dean Mercer, who was quietly following Ethan's trail. His emails, offshore transfers, fake company accounts, everything. And tonight, while Ethan played the charming husband, Dean was downloading files from his office computer. Halfway through dinner, Ethan raised a toast. To love, success, and second chances. Second chances. for a man who'd never given one to anyone. When the wine hit my tongue, I looked across the table and saw his reflection in the glass, smug, careless, untouchable. And that's when I realized the irony. He'd built an empire on appearances, but he didn't notice the cracks. He didn't notice that I wasn't shaking anymore. He didn't notice that I'd already moved his passwords, copied his files, and emptied my share into a private account under my name. When dessert arrived, I stood up and leaned close to his ear. "Enjoy your meal," I whispered. "It might be your last peaceful one." He frowned, confused, as I smiled for the cameras. That was the night his empire quietly began to fall. 2 days later, Ethan's mask started to crack. He came home early, jaw tight, eyes blazing. "Did you move the money from our joint account?" he demanded. I didn't look up from my laptop.
No.
I moved mine. He laughed, short, sharp, cruel. "You think you can play games with me?" I shut the screen, stood up slowly.
No, Ethan.
"I think I just stopped playing yours." His voice dropped to a whisper, the dangerous kind. "You forget who you're talking to." I tilted my head. "The man who hits his wife in front of 100 people?" For the first time, he went pale. Because he knew I had proof. He tried to smile it off, to regain control. "You wouldn't dare. It'd ruin you too." I took a step closer.
No, Ethan.
"It would free me." That night, I sent Marissa the edited footage, a clean, undeniable clip of the moment his hand struck my face. She sent back a message. "This changes everything." By morning, Ethan's world began to tilt. His PR team called, his investors backed out of meetings, and whispers started spreading through the press about a domestic altercation. He stormed into my studio, slamming the door. "You think this will hurt me? You're nothing without my name." I smiled. The same calm, dangerous smile from that night. "Then let's see how far your name goes without your reputation." He grabbed my wrist, but this time I didn't flinch. I just said, "Touch me again, and I'll make sure that video is the first thing people see when they search your name." He froze. For the first time in years, he looked scared. And that was the moment I knew his downfall had officially begun. By the end of that week, Ethan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. His investors had seen the clip. His PR manager quit. And his company's board requested an emergency meeting, the kind that usually ends with security escorting you out. I didn't release the full footage yet. Just enough to let the cracks show. Every time he passed me in the house, his eyes burned with panic disguised as anger. He'd mutter, "You've ruined everything," under his breath, pacing the marble floors like a trapped predator. But I stayed calm, cooking my breakfast, answering work emails, humming to myself. Because I'd already moved out, just not physically yet. My new apartment lease was signed, utilities set up, security cameras installed. Marissa had drawn up the divorce petition with clauses that guaranteed I'd walk away with my share of assets and a restraining order ready to file if he so much as raised his voice. 3 nights later, he snapped. "You think you can survive without me? You'll come crawling back." I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I already did. Years ago. You just didn't notice when I stopped." He blinked, caught off guard. Then the doorbell rang. 2 men in suits stood outside, from the board of directors. "Mr. Carter, the board requests your immediate attendance tomorrow morning. You might want to bring legal representation." His face drained of color. He turned to me, trembling with rage. "You planned this." I didn't deny it. I just whispered, "You planned it the night you hit me." And as he stood there, cornered, defeated, and finally silent, I realized something. Justice doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it just needs to arrive quietly on time. The morning of the board meeting felt unnervingly calm. I sat in my car outside the company headquarters, engine off, watching the building that had once been Ethan's kingdom. Reporters were already gathering by the front steps. The whispers had grown into a storm. Inside, Ethan's empire was bleeding. Marissa had leaked just enough evidence, not just the video, but documents showing financial misconduct, manipulation of contracts, and hush payments. Every lie he'd built his image on was now under a microscope. I wasn't there to gloat. I was there to witness the ending. Not his, but mine. From my window, I saw him step out of his black car, still wearing that designer suit, still pretending control. But his walk was different now, slower, heavier, uncertain. When the first camera flash hit, he flinched. And then it happened. One of the reporters shouted, "Mr. Carter, is it true you assaulted your wife on her birthday?" He froze.
His jaw tightened.
Another question followed, then another, until his perfect composure cracked in front of the world. By noon, he'd been suspended indefinitely, pending investigation. By sunset, every major outlet carried his story. Ethan Carter, the fall of a golden man. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, a soft breeze in my hair, the city lights blinking below. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't crying. I was simply breathing. Marissa called. "It's done," she said. "He's finished." I nodded, staring at the skyline. "Then let's finish the paperwork tomorrow." When I hung up, I opened my phone. No missed calls, no threats, no apologies. Just peace. It felt strange at first, that kind of silence. Not empty, just full of everything I'd reclaimed. A week later, my lawyer's office smelled like freedom, fresh ink, new beginnings, and signed papers that finally spelled divorce granted. Marissa smiled across the table. "You're officially out, Lena."
Out.
The word felt weightless, like the first inhale after years underwater. Outside, rain drizzled over downtown. I stood under my umbrella, watching people rush by, strangers with stories, none of them knowing the war I'd just survived. That night, I drove to the coast, to the same beach where Ethan once promised me forever. The air tasted of salt and new chances. The ocean roared, endless and indifferent, washing away the last traces of the woman who used to flinch at every raised voice. I pulled out my phone and opened my drafts. The video, the full one, sat there untouched. His words, his tone, his violence. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because sometimes peace is the bigger punishment. He'd already lost everything that made him feel powerful, the company, the press, the illusion of control. And me? I'd found something better than revenge. Control over my own story. Back home, I framed the first sketch I'd drawn since leaving him, a hand releasing a bird mid-flight, lines sharp, wings open. I placed it above my desk with one simple caption: "Never again." When I finally lay in bed, I didn't dream of escape or fear. I dreamed of space, the kind where no one's watching, no one's shouting, no one's taking. Just silence. And in that silence, I realized something beautiful. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was me again. And for the first time in years, that was enough. 3 months later, I stood on a small stage in front of a quiet audience, women from shelters, support groups, and recovery programs. They weren't strangers. They were reflections of who I used to be. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the lights instead of fear. "My name is Lena Carter," I said, voice steady. "And I am not ashamed of my story anymore." They listened, not to the details of Ethan's abuse or his fall, but to the part that mattered, the rise after it. "How did you survive?" one woman asked from the front row. I smiled softly. "By learning that silence doesn't protect you. Truth does." After the event, a young girl approached me, maybe 19, eyes full of hope and hurt. "He used to hit me too," she whispered. "But I'm leaving next week." I hugged her tight. "Then you've already won." That night, as I drove home, I passed by a newsstand. A headline caught my eye: "Ethan Carter declares bankruptcy amid ongoing investigation." I didn't stop to read it. There was no satisfaction left to feel, only closure. At home, the sea wind carried through my open window, brushing against the curtains like forgiveness. I brewed tea, opened my balcony doors, and let the city lights blur into soft gold. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I was just free, finally, beautifully free. I lifted my cup toward the night sky, whispering, "To the woman who laughed instead of cried. To every one of us who finally chose peace over pain." Because in the end, revenge fades. But peace lingers. And that night, I slept without fear, without noise, without ghosts.